Long, listless days in the rain with thick, porous mud beneath your feet, marching kilometers and kilometers until bodies and minds began to tire. A constant bombardment of artillery and gunfire deadens your senses. A never-ending threat of death or catastrophe from any direction. The realities of a soldier in war had long been exposed from the grim footage of Europe's last, World War I. But what if there was a way to counter all this? What if there was a way to give soldiers superhuman energy? What if they could be on their feet, working and energized not for hours, but for entire days? What if they didn't even need food for that long? What if they had so much confidence and energy they didn't even fear battle? Enter methamphetamine, a product commercialized in Germany, soon became a regular supplement to the soldiers fighting World War II, and in the case of Aimo Koivunen, would leave them with tales for a lifetime. Welcome to History on Fleek. Today we look at the most insane moments of meth-addled soldiers in World War II. The story of methamphetamine and its use in World War II begins with a great happenstance. A wicked course of stars aligning around the middle of the 20th century, methamphetamine had easy commercial access. Benzedrine first caught the attention of German chemists for its use in doping at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. The amphetamine was then synthesized by Temmler-Werke, a German pharmaceutical company, into a pill form of methamphetamine, and so Pervitin was born. With the assistance of a major advertising campaign, Pervitin was commercially sold in the winter of 1937. Its reputation grew in a matter of mere months. Its popularity took off, and it should be stated, a prescription was not required to purchase. So normalized and popular was Pervitin, boxes of chocolates were produced around the time, laced with the stuff. Dr. Otto F. Ranke was the first in the Nazi high command to recognize its potency for warfare. Ranke was a daily user who would go beyond 30 to even 50 hours without sleep with the assistance of Pervitin. However, its first field test for the German forces would leave it an indispensable part of their military operations thereafter. The invasion of Poland in 1939 was all the field testing the Nazis needed for Pervitin. In close to a month flat, Poland had been utterly overrun with some 100,000 Polish soldiers killed. The Blitzkrieg had come, manifest, a lightning war, in which speed, surprise, and unending strength and appetite for battle overwhelmed all in the way. The Nazis' superior vision of only the strongest, superhuman soldiers had been found, and they owed it all to readily supplied methamphetamine. If you came to this video in search of the craziest possible story on World War II meth consumption, buckle up. This story belongs to one Finnish individual called Aimo, and is like nothing you've ever heard before. Born in 1917, Aimo Koivunen was one of 6 children, the eldest of his siblings. He, like many a young man in Finland come the 1940s, found himself dragged into the conflicts of World War II. For Aimo, this meant the continuation war. Following the German invasion of the Soviet Union on June 22, 1941, Finnish cities were bombed by Soviet air raids just 3 days later. Surprise, surprise, the Finnish sided with the German forces. The continuation war would end with a Soviet victory, as Nazi efforts on the Eastern Front were too. Yet from 1941 to late 1944, the terrain between Russia and Finland at the most northern reaches of Europe was of vital strategic importance. Though it is astronomically unlikely Aimo Koivunen would have foreseen what the battle held for him. Astoundingly, the methodology of the Nazis was laced with meth. This was quite the 180 from the public and ideological stance the National Socialist Party had towards drugs. Officially, the Nazi line on drugs and their consumption was hardline and fundamentalist. In Nazi ideology, drug consumption on a personal and social level was an echo of the country's decay following World War I. If you were using drugs, you were weak and a walking embodiment of Germany's moral decay in the wake of World War I's end and the Treaty of Versailles after. Yet, it would appear, if you were a soldier on the battlefield, getting your meth on was just right. This strange double helix was all over German society in the 1930s. Pervitin was a magical pill, not just in the literal sense, but in a clear metaphor as well. The rallying cry for strong people for Germany to awake had found its perfect tango partner. Once Pervitin was commercially available, it was widely used in German society. The energy and hyper-alertness Pervitin gave its consumer was ideal for a dictatorship demanding rebirth and soldiers who simply would not sleep. None of this would quite have caught on as it did without the commercialization. Pilot crews would be dispensed Pervitin in chocolate bars called Flieger Schokolade. The tank crews much the same with Panzer Schokolade. As 1940 rolled around, the drug's popularity and usage only became further cemented. The production factory of Temmler Werke was working beyond capacity to produce as much Pervitin as possible. The figure available is some 833,000 Pervitin pills were pressed per day. It's understood from April to July 1940, 35 million tablets of methamphetamine were dispensed to German soldiers and servicemen. Aimo Koivunen's war record isn't exactly littered with posts and achievements. It's close to a one-chapter tale. We know that at 27 years old in 1944, he was like many a Finnish soldier, assigned to a ski patrol during the Continuation War. This patrol out in the northern climate was solitary and something of a long-distance affair. 3 days in, the patrol was found by Soviet soldiers and attacked. Koivunen and his fellow soldiers fled, Aimo taking the lead as they made their way into the nearest forest. All of the soldiers held different supplies. Aimo held the supply of Pervitin. In his panic, he decided to take a pill, yet, in the Arctic conditions, appropriately thick mittens didn't make opening a bottle and picking a pill so easy. Aimo then decided to empty the entire supply of 30 Pervitin pills into his mouth. Luckily for Aimo, this mega dose of methamphetamine didn't strike him dead. But boy, was he in for a journey. Performance-enhancing drugs were the way of the Nazi military operations, but also the high command. It would be remiss to ignore the ever-growing accounts that Hitler himself was somewhat prone to substance use, or, misuse. Dr. Theodor Morell was the notorious physician for Hitler, whom he first met in 1936. Curiously, Morell acted little more than a personal physician to a famed star of today in his early dealings with Hitler. Hormone and vitamin treatment. What are supplements now were injections then. Hitler had his own individual health ailments, but they were no more drastic than many others. Yet when the war started to turn against Germany in the autumn of 1941, Adolf Hitler started getting sick. Yeah, the man who put the world at war started to decline the moment he started losing it. Oh, poor Diddums. In reality, Hitler was swimming in a cocktail of substances from about late 1941 till the war and his end. Video footage can reveal what many believe are the shakes of Parkinson's disease. But we have no medical record of Hitler ever suffering from such. We do have records that the man was supplied by Morell with opiates. These same opiates would no longer be available late in the war following British bombing runs. So the video footage is likely not showing the shakes of Parkinson's, but an addict in severe withdrawal. Today we have a near complete list of the substances Dr. Morell would apply to the Nazi leader. And it is astonishing. A nearly 40-item list of just about every body or mind-altering substance you can come to think of, from barbiturates to opioids to bull prostate. Hitler was given uppers and downers at regular intervals whenever he demanded. While there is increasing cause to believe Morell's application of Eucadol, a powerful opiate, left Hitler a mess in withdrawal. He, no different from the soldiers he commanded, was regularly supplied with Pervitin, the methamphetamine fueling World War II. The 30-plus pill overdose had not killed Aimo, but clearly sent his entire nervous system into a radical overload. He got an energy burst, was sent delirious, then was presumably chemically knocked unconscious. He woke up 100 kilometers away the very next day. All the supplies were gone, as were any of his fellow soldiers. Yet Aimo was still high as a kite. After much stumbling about the Arctic tundra, Aimo would find a camp he thought was one for Finnish soldiers, and began his approach. But it wasn't. It was a Soviet camp. Aimo once again ran off at near light speed, riddled with delirium, headed towards the horizon. Seemingly, Aimo's luck would change though. He would find a small log cabin out in the woods, finally a place to rest and find safety. He lit a fire and lay himself down to rest inside the cabin. Aimo would awake to find the cabin ablaze. Quick disclaimer, do not mix fire starting and substance use. That goes for all of you. Yet this didn't disturb the meth-addled chap. He simply shuffled further back into the blazing cabin till it entirely collapsed. Fear and loathing in Karelia would continue for the drugged-out Aimo. Following what he thought was the North Star led to an abandoned German camp. Now, like most abandoned German war bases, it was thoroughly booby-trapped upon their departure. Aimo would find this out in what must have been a curious attempt at skiing, as his right leg was blown to smithereens. Friends, supplies, keys, and a leg gone. Aimo crawled into a ditch at -4 Celsius and waited there for an entire week. He slowly approached sobriety, and therein enormous hunger, apparently surviving off pine nuts and the occasional jaybird. A rescue party would arrive eventually, and somehow Aimo made it to a hospital for treatment. When doctors at the hospital got to treat Aimo Koivunen, they were flabbergasted by the medical anomaly in front of them. He was 2 weeks into cold exposure, near starvation, was missing a leg. It was a near impossibility that he was alive and talking to them. Though it should be stated he was absolutely incoherent and could not make a word of sense. His heart rate was measured at 200 beats per minute, at least twice the normal rate. Weighing just 94 pounds, Aimo's survival was a miracle, and certainly to his perspective. He could recall being attacked by a wolverine in the wilderness, only to wake up and find himself fighting a tree. Amazingly, Aimo Koivunen would survive, passing away at the age of 71 after a long life lived back in Finland. He was the first and most notorious documented case of a methamphetamine overdose in war. And what a tale he had to tell from it. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.